Welcome in week 6 fantasy draft. Just 3 weeks of the regular season left to go. And we are back with another week of the fantasy draft. Excited to kick it off. We had some big performances last week. A few that I haven't gotten into the books, but the ground game was strong. Dawson DeBose for Bridgewater Raynham had a great game for my squad. Brennan, you were on hand for that. He looks pretty legit. He's had a couple of big games over the course of the year. Jack Finnegan for you, excellent game there. And then Johnny, not in the ground game, but Declan Davis ended up winning the battle of the Davis twins for you with a touchdown. Liam Davis had a couple of nice plays defensively, but it was Declan chipping in on the offensive side of the ball. That brings us to week 6. Big news for Johnny. We'll see if you want him. Marcus Thurston officially back in the lineup for Archbishop Williams and exploded with 265 yards and 4 touchdowns last week. It's a shame Archie's didn't give us the tip ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved that tip. That would have been a runaway win.
So the order tonight is going to be Johnny first, Brendan second, myself third. So without further ado, let's go to the podium where Johnny, you are on the clock.
I mean, I got to go back to him, right? I mean, I said I was going to do him. So Marcus Thurston from Archie's.
Tough matchup for them this week against Bishop Fenwick, who's very, very good. But
that's a more principal pick, honestly.
Yeah.
I have to.
Promises made, promises kept. Absolutely. But I think they're going to lean heavily on him in that one anyways. So expect to see him get a lot of carries. And if they are going to pull off what I think would be a good upset, he's going to have to be a big piece of it. All right, Brendan.
I know you guys have both picked this player at least once this year, but I'm looking at this Pembroke-North Quincy matchup, and I feel like Pembroke is going to be hungry to come back for a win after that brutal loss at the end of regulation to Plymouth South last week. Came down to the wire, but they just came up just short. I think they're going to rely on Jack Tassoni in this game heavily. I think they're going to get out early. They might take like a 14-0 lead, and then it's going to be ground game the rest of the way. And I think Tassoni is going to be the beneficiary of it. It's going to be him or Kenya, and I think Tassoni's the lead back.
Yeah, absolutely. They do a good job of mixing everybody in, but Tassoni does seem to always kind of get his when it comes down to it. And as you said, Brennan, I think it's an important week for them. So I like it a lot. I am going to go to the wide receiver room first. I've had, I believe, three different receivers from this team already at one point this season, at least 2. And I know the third has gotten drafted. So might as well round it out. I'm going to go with John McDonald out of Hanover, go to that Hanover Situate matchup. And he's been good. He's had a couple of long touchdowns. He had a fantastic game this past weekend. So I'm going to ride the hot hand with John McDonald. Johnny, round 2.
I'm going to go with a wide receiver. I am going to go out to Weymouth. I'm going to pick up Aiden Henderson, their wide receiver. They're playing Framingham this week, which could be a little bit of a battle, but hopefully they look at Aiden.
Yeah, I like this matchup as well. And I think they're going to be looking to get the air game going, coming off of a loss to Milton, try to kind of get the ship right against, I think, a Framingham Flyers team they can take advantage of. Brendan, your second pick.
See, I'm debating. I'm looking at the list of receivers here. Really, I'm just unsure of where to go. I haven't picked a Hingham player all season long, I don't believe. So I think I'm going to go with Cameron Dobson in this matchup against Plymouth North. I feel like he's been Hingham's kind of lead receiver. And this could be a game where Hingham kind of takes an early lead and they rely on him to get some points early on.
Yeah, coming off a game where he had a touchdown this past week, despite the loss to Marshfield, and a long one at that. I like the pick. I like the pick a lot. I'm going to dip into the quarterback pool, take the first QB off the board. And he's a guy that honestly I'm surprised hasn't gotten picked yet this year by anybody. Just the way that their team is rolling. They do spread it around. It feels like their stat sheet is pretty well distributed every week. But it starts at the top, so I'm going with Luke Richardson from Hull. They've got a big matchup against Carver this week. We've talked about it on the show. I think this is really the last big test for them that stands between them and an 8-0 regular season. I like Luke to have a big part in taking them to a win this week. Johnny, kick off the third round.
I'm going to stick in the, let's see. I like this matchup a lot. I'm going to go with the wide receiver room. I'm going to go Adam Barr from Duxbury. I think they're going to take it to Silver Lake. It's just really a matter of what receiver they use.
I think that is the case. I think it's going to get spread around a little bit. And Adam's been kind of quiet this year, I feel like, compared to some other guys. So a good chance to get him going. All right, Brennan on the clock.
Thinking quarterback here. I'm looking at the matchup between Rockland and Middleborough. I feel like that's going to be a shootout. So I'm going to go with Jacob Briggs this week. I feel like in that matchup, Moriarty might get some numbers here, but I feel like Briggs is the more explosive of the two quarterbacks, at least as of right now. So I think it's going to be a back and forth shootout, and Briggs will get some numbers in this one.
Yeah, we'll be on hand for that one on Friday night. So I thank you for that. He's been picked once this year. It was I picked him a couple weeks back. He had a fantastic week for me. He's had to put it together a really nice season for himself. I'm excited, and I mean, I've been vocal about this. I think that they're going to have it's going to be a great game Friday night, and they're going to lean heavily on him to guide them. If they're able to get a win. I'm going to close out the first round with the first dip into the running back pool, and as I said, when you made your pick, Johnny, I was keying in on the Weymouth matchup. So I'm going to go with Cam Iada out of Weymouth. He's stepped in nicely for them this season after we saw Brandon Riley go down with an injury in the game we had against Newton North. And he had a big week for them last week. I love the matchup against Framingham, so I'm going to take Cam Iada. All right, round 4.
Quinn, since you've already gone quarterback, I'm going to go running back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with a team that's in a bit of turmoil, so this might be a surprising pick. I'm going to go Brian Gallagher from Spellman. They're playing Fian. Fian has really good edge rushers. They're really good against the pass, so I think they're going to try to run the ball.
Yeah, turmoil is the word for it. You lose your head coach, pretty much calls out your fan base, which is a tough part. I'm sure we'll talk about that in days to come. And I'd love to hear Con Chase's take on the situation. But yeah, you're without your head coach now. I imagine that's going to limit, I guess, what you want to do. You want to kind of simplify things. I don't know if he was the offensive play caller there, but certainly a good week to get back to basics and go on the ground. Pick number 2 of the 4th round, Brendan.
I'm looking at the Duxbury Silver Lake matchup, and I'm just debating which running back I want to take here. I think I'm going to go Alex Barlow this week. I feel like the Dragons are going to jump out ahead. Silver Lake could keep it close early on, but eventually the Dragons will always figure out a way, and they're going to rely on the run to just keep the clock rolling.
Yeah. I had him on my board. I was looking at Alex, and I think that's a fantastic pick. I think, like you said, I think both of you going to the Duxbury match was smart this week, and I think that in the end they're going to be able to go on the ground a lot because the passing game is going to find success early and kind of open things up for them. I'm going to take my second receiver then. I believe you're both full in the running back room, so yeah, I'm gonna hold off on that. I'm going to go back into the receiver pool, and I think I'm going to look at Jamie Andrews from Plymouth South. The matchup for them, they are going to be taking on Quincy, and I love what they're doing in Quincy. Don't get me wrong, but we've, just in kind of a short sample size, we've seen, Brennan, you saw them against Hanover. We saw their game back a little bit of ways against Westwood. they have the penchant to give up the big play. So I'm just hoping that when the big play comes, Jamie Andrews is on the receiving end of it. All right, final round, Johnny.
I'm going to round out with my quarterback selection. This is a team that I feel like is really good this year, but maybe I'm incorrect. I just don't feel like gets a lot of buzz. You know, Brendan, you had one of their games earlier this year. I'm going to go Connor Zukowski from Mansfield. I feel like this is a year they're kind of getting back on the saddle after a couple okay years, and I think they have a big game this week.
Yeah, they do have a big game. They're coming off of they were out in Pennsylvania last week.
Yeah,
playing Haverford. So you come back this week, and you're taking on a Barnstable team that we saw was down early in the season. I think this is a matchup that Mansfield should roll in, and hopefully just the long drive down to the Cape doesn't put any rust on the right arm of Connor Zukowski. I like the pick, Johnny. Brennan, your final pick.
I'm looking at two specific games. I have to pick a receiver here. I'm debating between the Hanover Scituate game and the Milton Needham game. I feel like those are both going to be back and forth. I'll go with Mike Fulton out of Milton this week. I think they're going to rely on him to keep Milton in this game with the Rockets over at Needham. So, and then eventually, I think Milton will eventually pull out the victory here.
I like it. All right. I will close out the board this evening. I got a little bit of indecision in me. I have to close out with a running back. As I said, I had Alex Barlow circled. I did like that pick. I'm going to go to a team that I think is, well, it's going to be a tough matchup for them, no question, this week. Coming off of a big win against Hingham, Marshfield kind of rolling, but I'm going to go with Evan Casey out of Whitman-Hanson. It's a tough defensive front for I'm
just saying it's a very tough matchup this week.
It's a very tough matchup, but you know what? He's been their big hogs on the ground. We know it's a great.
It's true. They
front.
are going to rely on him. I'm just looking at that Marshfield team. I'm like, oh wow, that's going to be tough. But if Whitman-Hanson does pull off the upset this week, watch out. They're going to climb a lot of rankings.
And I look at them and I just say they're so good defensively that, if they're going to try to win that game, they're going to want to keep it on the ground, shorten up the game, as few possessions as possible. And I think Evan Casey plays a big role in that. And listen, I like them on both sides of the line. I know their offense has, left some out there this season, but Evan Casey still seems to get his numbers. So I'm going to go with him. And that'll round out the draft. So, Johnny, from the one position, quarterback Connor Zukowski out of Mansfield, running backs Marcus Thurston and Brian Gallagher out of Archie's and Spellman. Wide receivers Aiden Henderson and Adam Barr. For Brennan, you have Jack Tassoni at running back, Cam Dobson at wide receiver, Jacob Briggs at quarterback, Alex Barlow at running back, and Mike Fulton at wide receiver. And then myself, Evan Casey at running back, along with John McDonald at wide receiver, Luke Richardson at quarterback, Cam Ieda at running back, and Jamie Andrews at wide receiver. So that is your week 6 fantasy draft. We've got 3 games this weekend that we'll be covering. It starts on Thursday night. We will be in Easton for Taunton at Oliver Ames. That'll be on WBMS. 6:45 pregame show for a 7:00 start. Friday night, mentioned it, Middleborough at Rockland. Should be a fantastic game on our flagship 95.9 WATD. And then we close out the weekend with a 1:30 start. Got moved from 3:30 up to 1:30. Plymouth North at Hingham. Should be a good one. 101.1 WBMS there. We'll start the pregame show at about 1:15. Like and subscribe. As always, you can find us on Twitter at SE on WATD. And until next week, this is your week 6 fantasy draft.